Good to go. Excuse me for that.
No problem at all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 19, 2022 meeting of the Cohasset School Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would all members who are present please indicate so on roll call. Mr. Carr is not yet present. Mr. Dial will be absent tonight. Mr. Kiernan.
Present.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Present.
And I am present, Craig McClellan. I'm assuming the role of chair for this meeting only in Mr. Dial's absence. Would all who are willing and able please rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, messed up. All right, never something you want to mess up, but it happened, it's over.
It's okay.
Okay.
Both good.
We're gonna keep on rolling here. We have an executive session today, just want to remind all members and everyone present, so if we can think about that, we want to have a comprehensive and fluent and thorough discussion, but if you can think about that, we do have that towards the end of the meeting. In considering maybe some superfluous remarks, just bear that in mind, but please feel free to share whatever you'd like. First item on the agenda, as always, and I should just comment, as I usually do, that the meeting will be streamed live, as always, on Facebook.
Facebook, it's live on
And that's
Facebook.
Cohasset 143 TV, and you can participate virtually by accessing it via Zoom and utilizing the Q&A feature to type some remarks or comments or questions. If you have them, we'll be checking that periodically. Either Ms. Owen or Dr. Scollins will likely see your comment.
And one thing, just for folks, in case folks don't know how to access that, it's on the agenda that we sent out. It will be in your email, so it's right at the top of the agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. So with that, we'll move right into public comment, which is the section of the agenda reserved for comments or discussion points that aren't related to something that's on the agenda. So if you have a comment or question or concern about something that's on the agenda, just wait until we arrive at that point in the agenda, and we'd be more than happy to hear your thoughts on that. For now, though, if you have a comment or discussion point that's not related to an agenda item, please share. There is no one in person here in the Learning Commons, so we will give everyone a few moments to do, a few seconds rather, to utilize the Q&A feature. If you have anything to share, please do so now.
There's no one in the, there's no chair, there's no one there.
There's no one there. All right. So we'll move right on to our invited guest here, our presentation from our very valued school resource officer, Greg Taylor. Thank you very much, Officer Taylor, for being here and for everything you do for the Cohasset community and for the Cohasset Public Schools. Dr. Sullivan, I'll turn it to you to sort of initiate the discussion.
Wonderful. Yes, and I want to join you in welcoming Officer Greg Taylor. Officer Taylor has been, and if I'm wrong with any of this information, please correct me, but a Cohasset police officer for 10 years.
Yeah, a little over 10 years.
A little more than 10, and I believe this is around your 5th year as SRO?
Yeah, going on to 6.
Yeah, for you and me both.
Yeah, so,
But it's been a pleasure working with Officer Taylor since I arrived here in Cohasset. He's really invaluable resource for us in terms of safety, in terms of community engagement. The kids love him, and that's really important. He builds strong relationships with students over at Deer Hill and Osgood, and then that really pays off when they come up to the middle and high school, because they know they can turn to him as a trusted adult in the building. Many have and do, and so we're really thankful for that. So as we typically do every year, I thought it would be a great idea to have Officer Taylor here to talk a little bit about his roles and responsibilities, some of the things that we're collaborating on, and then to get any questions that the committee might have regarding that. And I thought we just kind of brainstormed a few things to chat about, and I thought we would start off with Officer Taylor telling us a little bit about what his essential job functions are, so the community understands that. And if the committee has any questions, we can go with that. But go ahead, Officer Taylor, and tell us a little bit about the essential job functions of the SRO.
Right before you do that, Officer Taylor, I just want to note on the record that Mr. Carr was here at 6:03 p.m. Welcome, Mr. Carr. Always wonderful to have you.
Sorry I'm late. I knew the police would be here. I didn't want to speed on the way.
It's a good thing. It's a good
Sorry
thing.
about that.
So take it away, Officer Taylor.
All right, yeah, so basically my function is to be the liaison between the schools and the Cohasset Police Department. If anything's going on outside of school, with a school-age child or families or stuff like that, then I can report back to the school, and anything that's going on in the school reports back to me. So, like Dr. Sullivan said, it's been about 6 years since I've been here. And within those 6 years, the relationship has become extremely compatible, for lack of a better term. It's been great. I feel like it grows every year.
Absolutely.
And it's just it's a good working relationship right now. I think we're headed in the right path.
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is the importance of Officer Taylor and all of our safety measures. You know, he sits on our crisis teams, our safety teams. When we talked about safety this summer in depth, he was right there along with Chief Quigley and other folks, really leading the charge to make sure that our staff are trained appropriately. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but that's just one piece of this, one key component. And then he also helps to run drills as we get into lockdown drills and safety drills, and really prepare not only our staff but our students for the possibility of any situation that might come our way. So we are prepared. Also, there's a lot of our procedures that involve Officer Taylor. For instance, if there's a bullying situation that is confirmed as, or even thought of as a bullying situation, there's a lot of communication back and forth between the schools and Officer Taylor to make sure that we have students' safety in mind, both inside and outside of school. When issues that happen outside of school might fall into school, we are able to communicate appropriately and within the realm of our memorandum of understanding to make sure that everybody is indeed safe. So there's a lot of communication that's happening almost on a daily, certainly weekly basis between principals and Officer Taylor. And then he just has become a part of the life of the schools. You know, you'll see him at a lunch or in his office with talking to students. He's at assemblies. He attends after-school activities, sporting events. And, it's been a very nice relationship, and quite frankly, something I feel as superintendent is essential to have in our schools for a variety of reasons. So I don't know if we want to have any questions about his essential functions. Then we'll go into some more details that we thought you might want to hear about some of the specific things that we're doing right now.
Sure.
You
Well,
may not, but if you have any particular questions about what he does.
okay, so do you want the committee members to ask questions?
Yeah, I think it'll be good now, and then we'll dive into some of the details.
Okay, we'll just move right along in alphabetical order. Mr. Carr, do you have any questions for Officer Taylor?
I would just share a story. Recently, we had a family that came in. The parents were interested in considering self-defense courses for students. I don't know if you've heard about it, but we'd love to maybe hear your thoughts. If you're not ready for that now, we thought it was an interesting suggestion. I know it's been something that's been discussed here before, but I just want to recognize that family that taking the time to come and share that information with us.
So I think what you're referring to is probably the RAD program. And there's two different ones. So there's one for younger school age students, and then there's one for the older group. So you probably sophomore, junior, seniors. Myself and Officer Lawrence, who's the Cohasset Police Department safety officer, we're both trained in RAD for the younger students. And RAD stands for at that level, it's resisting aggression defensively.
I actually have the flyer on the screen.
Oh, perfect. The older level, it's rape and aggression defensively. So it's a little more in depth as far as like defensive tactics. The older class, it's more hands-on. It's pretty much all hands-on. Whereas the younger RAD students, half of the class is sitting down in the classroom. We talk about home safety, Halloween safety. It's October, so like Halloween safety, fire safety, all that type of stuff. We don't really call it strangers anymore, but they'll learn that. But answering the door if you're home alone, or if the parents upstairs or outside answering the door, stuff like that. So it's definitely a different structured course. We are looking in to get certified for the older students for that rad. It's just the program isn't offered as much and as regularly. And it's not as close by as the younger rad course. So we are looking into it. It's definitely something that's on our radar. And if we do get certified, I'd love to, partner with the schools.
We have one staff member who is certified in it.
Yes.
But, it's
I think she's
just,
certified in both, actually.
she is, yeah. So but it's, it's a matter of making sure that there's space to do that. She's also incredibly busy and involved in most everything in the schools. So, we hope that might be something we can offer going forward. I think at the lower level, I should say the lower grades, it has a lot to do with good decision-making.
Yes.
About recognizing danger, correct?
Yeah.
Everything from how to deal with a bullying situation to how to deal with household dangers, how to keep yourself safe when you're on the street. So there's a lot that goes into it that's more than just a physical combative thing.
Talking about phone safety,
Yeah.
all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last part of the class, if it has to come to it, it is some hands-on stuff.
And we've shifted this a little later. I know you said November 1st is what we're trying for.
Yes, we have 10 signed up now. We're gonna start November 1st. It runs from 4 to 6 here at the high school.
Yep.
And it'll be Officer Lawrence and I.
And they sign up through the rec department, right?
Yes,
I know these dates are incorrect, but I believe that is the correct address with Cohasset Rec, ma.myrec.com. Good. Great. Super.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Kieran.
Yeah, well, thank you for all you do. Appreciate that. And to circle back to what Ted was talking about, it's usually like something like a 6-week program or 8-week program or something consistent like that, correct?
So the older rad, it's really maybe like 3 or 4 classes.
Okay.
They're probably like 2 to 3 hours long. So
Yes.
I mean, it's a lengthy, each one's kind of a lengthy class. 'Cause like I said, it's basically all hands-on. There's really no classroom learning or anything like that. It's
Tactic move, like.
yeah, it's intense. It's
Yeah.
an intense course. But it's, it's trying to depict real life
Right.
situations, so.
Right, and like more so like preventing, also prevention, how to get yourself out of situations.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I was trying to think of like, maybe we can come up with something that addresses not only self-defense, keeping yourself, being able to defend yourself, but also with concern of underage drinking. So we try to, because it's basically
Yeah.
decision making, it's making bad decisions.
yeah,
Well, that's a great segue actually into one of the things that we wanted to discuss, which was Greg's involvement with Safe Harbors. Greg and I both sit on the steering team. And Greg is certainly involved in working with Safe Harbors. And I think most folks know how robust our youth ambassador program is. It's something that's really taken off. We've had, I think there were like 40 students involved, a very large group for a small district involved with making sure that we learn about and stay away from dangers of alcohol and drug use. So
That is
Yeah.
a great program.
it's a great program.
And it's just a great way to just hear it from somebody else, I really feel confident that my children are educated enough not to make bad decisions. I mean, they're still kids, but Safe Harbor has really kind of eliminated a lot of the things before it happened. So,
It's great. And, remember, we've talked for a few years now about the importance of social and emotional learning. And one of the key factors in social and emotional learning is responsible decision-making. So this really does fit in. And that's a Department of Education requirement for us to meld SEL into everything we do. It's actually, there's a whole set of standards with it. So this is not only important from a perspective of just helping our kids, but it also ties in what we're supposed to be doing in school. Question.
Yeah, I introduced as mine.
It is.
I guess just my one follow-up to Mr. Hart to this conversation is it possible to get a, like an action step and like an actual timeline on that? I totally understand like being certified for one level and not yet for another, but I guess from the perspective of schools and the future of our, like my kids are doing the younger kid program starting in a couple of weeks.
Good.
So we are 2/10 of your program. But I do think Mr. Moy has a great point, having that training at the high school level. Is it something that would get integrated into the health curriculum? Is it something that's a substantially separate class through rec that people are signing up for? I'm just curious kind of what we see as a district, how it might look,
Yeah.
and if we could
It-
identify a
it is-
timeline on it.
And
Which level are you talking about?
The
Both?
upper level, because the lower level exists already, and it ran this
Yeah.
summer, it's running again, you know, that exists.
so the certification
Yeah.
process, I'll defer to Greg on that, but it's a pretty lengthy process, correct?
Yeah, and it's more just the availability more than anything. So all of our training falls under NPTC. And the RAD for the younger students is offered through that. This type of RAD training for the older students doesn't really fall under that quite yet. Maybe a little later, I don't know, but so that's why the availability isn't quite as much there as it was for the younger students.
And I personally think as a school district, I think this makes for a better collaboration with our rec department and our police department than something that falls on the schools to provide. That's my feeling. I think it is a great place for collaboration. I think that's what we're trying to do. So, yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I mean, if we do get trained in the older, which I do see us, as far as the timeline,
Yeah.
I don't know, we just have to find that. Get trained first of all, and then figure out a program. Definitely involve the schools. If we do it during school hours, great. If it doesn't work, then maybe figure out something after school. But that would be the first place we go once we were trained. Let's talk to the schools and try and figure something out.
And I should say, just to go back to curriculum, and Dr. Scollins, feel free to jump in here, but our health curriculum absolutely
Yes.
talks about and works with students making healthy decisions, how to
Right,
avoid
Right,
all of
Mr.
that.
Sweeney and Mr. Ford laid that out very nicely.
Very, yeah,
a few
so
months
it's
ago.
a real focus of our curriculum. It's just the self-defense portion of it is what I would say would be a better collaboration with the police and with the rec
Yeah.
than something that we hold on our own.
I
But
wonder if there's something though regionally that we could do, like we're a small town, we have a small police force,
Mm.
training is far away, is there something that we could collaborate with like Hingham or Situate or Norwell or Hanover? And see if there's something local that Cohasset could get in on, or we could advertise in your newsletter or something,
Yeah.
you know, I just feel like,
yeah, I think these are all excellent ideas. And that's why like I'm
Local
advertising the RAD for
police department.
which by the way is November 1st.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it is worth, I guess, kind of like casting a broader net and see if we could do something with a regional approach and making it available. Because I remember taking that training and I literally think through those steps when I'm walking places at night and I have my little key between my fingers and I'm like, no, go away, you know, like.
That was good training.
I was 12 when I did that and now I'm ready to punch someone or kick someone if I ever need to. I just think it's important to, keep things moving forward and not just speak in generalities. So I don't know.
Which is why, I enjoy teaching the younger level,
Mhm.
because it kind of offers them like a self of empowerment. Like, if something does happen, I'm prepared. I'm ready. I still, I'll see them, still do the stay back,
Right.
So they do remember it,
Mhm.
so that it's good, and they'll have that skill set throughout.
Right.
So.
Can I have?
One moment, Mr. Kirk, 'cause I see Mr. Moy, I always want to take advantage of anyone that's willing to come to the meeting to speak. So, Mr. Moy, could you just identify your full name and state your address, please?
Jeff Moy, 33 Lakewood Drive. So, Officer Taylor, in terms, doesn't Situate offer that self-defense class now? Are you aware? Because that's what my wife Maggie had heard, And that's why we have thought, well, maybe, collaborate where they could help, at least with the self-defense portion. And kind of help with the training. That's what, when I think she spoke to you last year, that was one of the holdups in terms of why we couldn't do it here in Cohasset. So anyway, can we,
Yeah, I do know that Situate has one or two RAD trained officers, and I believe Hingham has maybe like two or three, maybe more. So that's something that we could talk about and maybe collaborate with them. It's always kind of tough because you got to get all of them on the same page and same schedule, and everybody's schedules are so up in the, this guy might be working the day shift, this guy might be working the evening shift, so it's kind of tough to collaborate with other towns like that to get an actual class going, but it's definitely something I could look into and discuss with. So
no, the self-defense portion, that wouldn't be very long, right? It would be like one session or two sessions. We're not, at least that portion of it.
but the whole I say adult rad, the whole adult rad class is pretty much hands-on self-defense. There's really no like classroom stuff.
Okay.
It's about 3 classes long. It's about two hours a class. And like I was saying earlier, I mean, it's pretty intense stuff. So
And are you aware, is it mainly just females take it, or have you seen that it's been males as well?
it's offered to anyone. Actually, the class that we're running for the younger students, that we have a couple males in the class, which I was good to see. But it's offered to anyone. It is popular for females to take, so most of the time, mostly is females. But anyone can take it.
I mean, if it's only a few classes, I think some of these officers, they might be able to do that during the off-duty hours. Come over and work with you guys, at least until you guys get fully certified.
But
Thank you, Mr. Moy. Mr. Carr, I'm sorry.
That's right, sorry, I'm so glad you're here. We were talking about you before you came in. So
Yeah,
Sure, different class.
Good things.
I guess I make an innocent offer, and that is we want to be a resource for you. So we'd like to try to help get things done. And so if we can be helpful to figure out how to do a training or whatever you need from us, a letter of support or whatever,
Okay.
please call upon us. We want to be actively involved. So,
all right, thank you.
Thank you,
sorry to
Mr. Carr.
interrupt.
I think there's two different parts of this. There's the aspect that, as Dr. Sullivan noted, is addressed in the health curriculum, which is the bullying, which is, some, text or social media harassment or, adversarial tones taken in that medium. But, and then there's the physical aspect of it, which as you, Officer Taylor, described as the adult rad, does address. And it's, you got someone in like a padded suit, people are launching attacks on them, they're demonstrating defensive moves. I think that it's really useful, especially as we're here trying to surmise ways of, or fashion ways that we can send off more like, I guess, well-rounded people off into college and a little bit more, secure and confident in their person. It's good. I do concur with Dr. Sullivan in that something like that may be more appropriate in partnership with the schools through the recreation department. Because, we're not a self-defense, martial arts academy type thing. And I think we could utilize the school, partner with the schools, help to advertise with the schools, help to gain participation and interest in it through the school community. But, I think it is an appropriate partnership between the police department and the rec department and the schools. And I think that I agree with St. Andrew's point that we do need to probably meet in subcommittee to sort of define more sort of purposeful parameters or timelines in terms of where we're going with that. And what can be done, like partnering with outside communities that are already certified, while our own officers become certified. And I do absolutely acknowledge, having worked in law enforcement before and working with members of law enforcement on a daily basis, I do acknowledge that scheduling of officers is difficult, and you're already away from your families at odd times a lot. So it's difficult, but not insurmountable. And I think that's what you were saying. It just takes some advanced planning, and we can do that. So I think that, you got to remember there's two elements of this. And one of those we addressed in a meeting over the summertime, as St. Ange, alluded to, that Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Ford came in to talk about the health curriculum. And as part of that, they did address some of the issues that I just mentioned. And that was responsive to some concerns that a community member, Mr. Moy, had raised towards the end of last school academic year. And so that came onto our radar, and we started with the presentation from the health curriculum. One of the primary points of that was to address the, bullying, social emotional health. Exactly, okay, and social media, substance abuse, things like that. And now the more, I think, perhaps more complex half of that is to identify how we could go about providing this. I think it's a great service. I think we should do it and offer it for the community. It's great. I agree with you, Ms. St. Ange. You said you took advantage of it when you were younger, or maybe recently. I don't know when it was.
I was younger.
So it obviously has value. And I think anything where we can provide value to our school community, we will want to do. And we just have to put our thoughts together. I don't think we're going to figure it out here and now,
No, I agree.
but
I'm happy to,
that'd be great.
I work in Situate.
That'd be great.
And I
Excellent.
see the Situate police officers all the time at school.
Excellent.
I can ask them about it and then follow up.
That would
with
be
you guys.
excellent. And then, yeah,
For the record.
Yeah, I'll ask about it.
That'd be
I
great.
talk to those guys literally daily. And then I'll get back to
and
you
then,
guys.
yeah, stay in touch with, report back to us and stay in touch with Officer Taylor. And I do want to thank you just outside of that topic. I think that the school district has developed a really strong relationship with the police department, and it's in absolutely no small part due to your efforts and the collaboration that you bring and Chief Quigley in interacting with students, not just from a security perspective, from a social emotional well-being. I mean, you've developed relationships with students where thankfully they have a positive perspective on law enforcement. That's part of that it's built upon, and they feel safe going to you. So I just wanted to point that out because it's really important facet of what you bring, Officer Taylor, and it's why we love having you here. So I just want to point out, that was really my point, other than remarking on the RAD training that we were just talking about. So unless anyone has any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just a couple more points just to make sure that the
Sure.
community hears.
Points for Officer Taylor. to talk
Yeah,
about.
just
Sure,
to talk, I mean,
sure,
not
sure,
that
sure.
we,
Yep.
I mean, that was the main, and actually some of the points came out during the discussion.
Right.
Safety training for staff. So we did, maybe you can overview like what kind of things you did for staff. I know with the Alice training.
Yeah, so myself and Detective Lieutenant Lopes are certified in what's called Alice. It's kind of it's self-defense. It's, like a school incident or a church incident or business incident. Alice is taught throughout the country. Massachusetts in the Northeast is really gripped onto it. It's kind of their training. So Detective Lieutenant Lopes and I train pretty much every summer. It just depends on how in-depth we do it. This year was a little more in-depth than years past, but we train the faculty and staff in Alice.
All faculty and staff. Several.
Alice stands for alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. It doesn't have to be run in that specific order. We kind of go through each letter, talk about it. And then the teachers and staff actually implement, like we just did a lockdown drill on Tuesday, I think, with the middle school. And we're gonna do an evacuation drill Friday with the middle school. High school did an evacuation drill. It teaches like rally points that I won't mention, but we do have rally points, in place. And it kind of it's that whole, as you do it more and more, as you do it, it just becomes second nature. So as you run through it, if something did happen, okay, we have a rally point. Where is that rally point? You know what I mean? So by doing this and going to those rally points and stuff, you kind of, all right, I know where it is. Let's go. Let's get up. Let's do this. So it's been great. Everyone's been receptive to it. we've not only done training for the staff, but we're always training as a police department, and we're now starting to work with police departments around us. With the schools, we're always training for school incidents. During the summer, we actually had Norwell, Hingham, Hull, Situate. If I'm missing one department, I apologize, but officers from all those departments came here during the summer. And we walked around the school. They kind of got a familiarity with it. We kind of discussed, if something were to happen, this is probably where it's going to be, or this is where the people go. They were shown a layout of what we do in an emergency. And we went and visited their schools. So we kind of got an understanding of their schools too. So if something does happen, we're going to have people from all over coming in. So it's good to have that familiarity.
We've offered all our schools as training areas because, quite frankly, we want all of the SWAT officers to know our buildings as they do,
Yep.
Our officers. But that's really coming to fruition. It's a good thing.
And it's good too, because we work out of town details. We have other officers. I'm sure as you drive around, you might see, a Situate patch or a Hull patch or something. So I might be working in detail in Hull, and I might be close by the high school, and something might happen. I'm going there, so it's just good to have. It's good to have that. Yeah, so we're always training. I don't know if people are familiar with our central dispatch. We have what's called a central dispatch. So if I picked up my phone right now and called 911, it goes to Hingham, but it will go to a Cohasset dispatcher. So there's no delay in emergency response, but it goes to Hingham. And with that dispatch, it's Norwell, Hull, Hingham, and Cohasset. And we have what's called a TAC alert. So if something in those towns were to happen where they need resources, they could call for a TAC alert, and they're going to get resources from all those towns. Situate is not part of the SHREC, but they are part of that TAC alert. So if something were to happen.
And then the other item was bike safety, which always comes up. And last year was it Department of Transportation? Yeah, we were able to offer something, working with Greg and the Department of Transportation to do some training. So we're always looking to do that type of thing. And I think, Greg, you've kind of done them in the past yourself.
Yes.
So we have some members of the community to get
We've
involved.
done it through REC. We've gone to Osgood and Deer Hill.
Yep.
And spoke about it too.
And Greg also teaches, helps, presents in high school classes and middle school technology classes and our elementary technology classes, teaching about cyber safety and some of the other things, and has brought some officers to help with that. So I just want to outline all that, just to make sure you had a good sense. And then you also know that we do have satellite offices created in all of our school buildings where officers can come in and work when they're not on, they're on shift, but they're not, how would I phrase it? They're off.
Yes, they could it's another option.
Yeah.
We have report writing at the police station, but it's another option where they can stop into the schools and write a report.
Get them familiar.
Yeah, get familiar with the staff. If, a few students come into the office to bring attendance down or whatever, they see them. So I think it's a great idea. We've had a few officers utilize it. And I think as it goes on, they get more familiar with it, it's going to become a little more popular.
Still have our text to tell
Yes.
Yep.
It's a-
app out there, and that's something that's you can find on our website. We're in full support and collaboration with that. And so there's a lot that we're doing, and we continue to look to strengthen that relationship.
Very, very grateful for everything that Officer Taylor and the Cohasset Police Department bring to the school district. And being mindful of time, I want to move on to the next topic. So
Yeah.
thank you very much, Officer Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Take care.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next topic, and I do want to sort of bring Mercedes update up first so that we can get her in and out of here. So
Sure.
Mercedes
Absolutely.
O'Neill, our student liaison, always so happy to have you. Welcome, Mercedes. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening at school these days from student perspective?
Yeah,
Yeah, so today, AP Bureau went to the Elizabeth Gardner Museum. That was nice. And then this week has been exciting because we have a pickleball tournament going on.
For breast cancer awareness, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
No pink.
Oh, yeah, I
Pink
have, my shoelaces have pink for breast cancer awareness. So people have been going to the gym during utility and watching that. And then also the medical club, they recently had a shipment of suture kits come in. So I think around 30 students, a part of the club, went and learned how to suture. So that was really exciting.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
the medical club, we had Mr. Savage, who was here at our last meeting. He runs it, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then next week we have Spirit Week. So that's always a
Fun.
good time.
Yeah.
Everyone's planning their outfits. And
That culminates in homecoming.
yeah, I think it's on the 28th.
Yes.
That's basically it. It's been very busy getting back into school, lots of quizzes, stressful time for the seniors as
Yeah.
November 1st deadline comes up. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great. And Mercedes is obviously involved in volleyball. That's great.
Yeah,
And-
just came for my practice.
Yeah, and our sports teams are in, do just flourishing, doing wonderfully, and looking forward to several teams, some playoffs, and
Great.
for all teams, big games, contests, showings. So it's kind of a culmination of their season.
That's great. Any questions for Mercedes on her report or any questions for, the student body through Mercedes? Mr. Carr?
Glad to know the homecoming date. I'll never hear about it from my daughters.
It's a big event.
But you can't remember.
Mr. Kearney, any questions?
No, I just think this is great. Thanks for the update. I think my daughters enjoyed that, Isabel. I think they like the cheesesteak.
I'm
Because
not
they did go on a trip. I don't know, she had a cheesesteak factory.
Did we really? What was that? I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
The,
They
the,
have lunch
the
there?
Elizabeth Stewart Gardner Museum, that has a really nice
Isabella
cafe in
Stewart
it.
Gardner.
Isabella, yeah, Isabella gets in there for free, my daughters.
Yeah, all Isabellas are free.
Some was today. I don't know. I'm inclusive.
It's
What
funny.
was today, but I will find out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna mention one thing. Some of the students have been asking about lunchtime visiting their teachers.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if this is like the place to bring it up. But there's been recent instances where students, I think I've talked to you before about this, but we're trying to go to our teachers to make up quizzes because our utility block doesn't allow us to go to every single class.
Right.
I was just wondering your opinion on that.
Well, I would want to work that through Principal Scott and Assistant Principal Noyes. I guess I have sort of a mixed opinion about it. I think my first thought is I want to make sure everybody has a full opportunity to eat and have well, I want to make sure you get a chance to meet with the teachers too. So it's a balancing act. And I think some of the key might be in that use of utility. But, it's definitely bears more conversation as we look, particularly as we look at our MTSS, which, you've heard of our multi-tiered system of supports, where we're trying to help out all students, kind of meet them where they are. And I don't know, I have mixed feelings on it. Because I want you to eat, I want you to make sure you eat, I just want to make sure you have the opportunity, and I want the teachers to be able to eat
I was gonna
too.
say, isn't it the same time?
So I think it's,
Lunches are the same.
yeah, it's tough for me to make a definitive answer on it, because I'd have to see the situation, but I think we can discuss that with
Yeah.
Principal Scott and Ms. Noyes, and we'll do that.
Mercedes, do students ever try and talk to teachers after school as well? Or is that too busy because of after-school activities?
A lot of students are involved in sports,
Yeah.
and so that's why it's really difficult, especially if there are away games. The students don't get back to the school until 6 or 7.
Quickly.
And then our utilities are really useful, but they're only about 28 minutes or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And recently they said we can only go to one utility.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult.
You know what, Mike, know what this is a good topic for is our superintendent student advisory council,
We'll talk.
which comes up on the second week in November. So
Mhm.
that would be a great first topic.
Yeah,
So let's do that.
yeah. I just wanted to put it out there because a lot of people came to me.
No, that's
The
good.
answer to your question is
Good.
that's a very appropriate thing to raise.
Oh, yeah.
That's why
Raise
we want you
everything.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do agree with Dr. Sullivan, just like we talked about other topics in, say, subcommittee of the school committee, it makes sense for Dr. Sullivan to address this with you in a
Yeah, I
smaller
like that.
group, especially where he had to consult with the building principals
Yeah.
anyway. But this is precisely the reason why we have you on the committee, and you obviously be replaced by someone else, next year when you're evaluated, but
Yeah.
we want to hear that sort of thing. So I'm glad you raised it.
Thank
She's
you.
gonna be joined soon by some other members.
Yes,
The
yes, you must be. recruited.
burden wouldn't be right on Mercedes'
Right,
shoulders.
exactly, exactly.
But she
So
does
thank-
such a good job.
Thanks for raising that, and Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Scollins will keep us apprised
Oh,
of
yeah,
what the,
absolutely. I
what the
love it.
developments are
That's
on
good. That's a good topic.
that, if that's an important issue for the students, okay? Any questions for Mercedes? You already had yours, Mr. Carr, so Ms. Sandwich.
I love having you back. It's so good to have student voice back in our rotation. I also want to say to the committee that I went to a volleyball game the other day and it was so exciting. I love that there's a volleyball team and I know you were so involved in volleyball even before it was at the high school,
One of the
but
founders.
but it was really exciting. And also as a mom of younger girls, after we went, I've heard so many of the younger kids say, oh my
Good.
gosh, when can I do volleyball? When can I get started? So it's
Great.
just really nice to be growing that
Yeah.
kind of crop of kids who are excited to join in.
Yeah.
And so I'll be curious to kind of watch this season be completed. But I know that you've been like a major leader in that, so really well done and very exciting game. I kind of want to become a volleyball player now too. And also I just want to kind of reiterate, I think bring up every single topic you want to bring up, that's exactly what we need to hear because we all have kids of different ages and different interests, but you have a seat at the table. So
Student
bring it
voice.
on. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sandwich. Yes, thank you for being a role model for the younger girls. That's an
Yeah.
important feature of having this, and there's 3 girl dads on this committee that are very interested in seeing their daughters have role models, so thank you for that. If it's all right with you, I'd like to invite Mercedes
Yeah.
to leave.
Yeah.
So she can get to her
Get
homework.
her homework, yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, Mercedes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mercedes. School news, Dr. Sullivan, turn the meeting over to you.
Yeah, a few brief updates. I can't give you an update on this one specifically, except to say that, because I didn't see it, because I pulled in different directions, but there was the first ever middle school cross-country home meet.
Cross-country, middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah, and I heard they have a volleyball team too. Is that?
They have a middle school volleyball team.
Wow.
So you got a lot going on there, but the middle school cross-country meet was today.
That's
And
awesome.
they figured a course and Coach Ford worked with the coaches that we have, and I will make up for this and redeem myself at a future meeting, but we have 2 wonderful parents who are helping that, and I believe a staff member too. But it very exciting that we have a home meet today. Parent-teacher conferences, as you all know, are happening today. They happen today and tomorrow, and I was going to Deer Hill, and they will happen at the
Okay. I
middle
was
school and
gonna
high
say, I
school.
missed it.
No, we're not gonna miss that. We're gonna let you know.
They didn't tell me.
Yeah, they happen more towards the,
Yeah, I think I thought I saw the
Yeah.
dates as more than
Yep.
okay. Just checking. I thought my kids were on a field trip today. Apparently,
Your kids were at Cheesecake Factory.
yeah, how did they get?
I don't
She had
know.
a big chocolate cake that she got in the car and I was like, she was hiding it saying it was a salad.
it sounded like the Saints didn't do that, so I don't know. I
I'm
can't.
asking her right now.
Metco block parties, one of the wonderful things that Elisa Gittens Carl does with the Metco program is hosts block parties. And we were able to, Dr. Collins and I were able to attend the first one, which was in Mattapan, at the Mattapan bus stop. And it was great being with the families there, and that was wonderful. And we have another one upcoming, which would be a larger one actually, at the Franklin Park bus stop. It's been, it moved a couple of times, once because of weather and now because of early release. We just had some miscommunication, and that's going to be rescheduled for hopefully soon,
Right, not
because
soon.
we'll lose the weather soon, right? But we'll inform the committee about that as well. That's a great event. High Five Friday is coming up with, on this Friday. That also was delayed because of inclement weather. I'm so glad I delayed that because it was sort of torrential rain and wind. And the idea of High Five Friday is you have our first responders, in this particular one, police and fire, outside of all of our buildings as students come in the morning. So just so if anybody's watching that, just to put in your mind, you will see extra police vehicles and fire vehicles on Friday. Do not be alarmed. That is because they're high-fiving our students as they come in the building. I'll remind everyone with an email around that. We have a fun run on October 26th, PSO fundraiser, which is at both Deer Hill and Osgood. And speaking, that's a great event. And then speaking of fundraiser, this Friday, CEF is having their fall night out. So that is at Paragon, was Paragon Boardwalk?
Yes.
Which
Is
is in
it Friday
Hull.
night or Thursday?
That is
Friday.
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 It's this Friday night from 7 to 10 PM.
Okay.
Buy tickets at the door. And that's a fabulous fundraiser. I was able to attend that last year. It was great. All wonderful, raising funds that go directly to help students and staff. So it's wonderful. Trunk or Treat, another PSO event is October. I'm glad to see this back. I'm smiling because it's a fun event. It's October 28th at Osgood. That's not this Friday, but the next one. And that is 4:30 to 5:30. And that is that's wonderful. You'll be hearing more about that from the Osgood community. That is it for my major updates, with the exception of one. I wanted to just share some pictures of our recently completed track. There it is, everyone. You can see it lined, and they did an exceptional job. It's nice to see that come to fruition, and I want to thank the committee for their work and helping push that through. And the town for Michelle Leary, and obviously Susan Owen and Steve Bertundi for their work with this. So it's great. That's one picture. And then also just to show you one more quick shot of it. Well, I don't know, I can't find the other shot. That's okay.
That's a good one.
You give us a good one. You get the idea.
You can imagine the other 50%.
You can imagine. And the other thing is the turf. So we do have in the works hopefully an accelerated turf timeline. Not prepared to discuss that right now, but the community will be hearing more about that, as will the committee as we get closer to that. And Steve Rotundi and we'll be communicating that, as will I, to the community in the not too distant future. And I anticipate a more thorough update on that on November 2nd. So that is my update.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. Any questions for Dr. Sullivan? You can just ask them at your leisure. No? Okay, so moving on. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. We'll move right into the teaching and learning section of the agenda, which brings us to Dr. Scollins, report. Dr. Scollins.
Sure. So just a quick update on MCAS. So those family reports for students in fourth grade and 10th, up to 10th grade, those reports went home last Wednesday on the 12th. So they were sent via mail. So just so parents know that. And just quickly, we had good growth. We want to stay in between, at least be at 40 to 68% for growth, and we did, which was nice for most of it. And we are looking at the data as obviously as a district, but as going into schools and working with all of the departments and all of the teachers really to kind of analyze the data. But I will do a more comprehensive presentation for you on November 2nd. All right, for the MCAS. And I'll give you all the data there. But it's been good talking to all the teachers around the data. And then iReady, the diagnostic that we have, we had received a grant, which I mentioned before, from the state. And so Curriculum Associates came in the past 2 weeks and worked with our K through 8 students. And worked with teachers so they could really understand where to find all the reports, what all the reports were, look, how to read and interpret the data. Also to look at the resources that there are so that we can, work with small groups or specific interventions, so important. So the teachers were really, really happy with it. I sat in several of the trainings and it was good. And one of the things they said was that our data looked pretty good. They do it all over the country, all over the state, and they're like, "The data looks good." I'm like, okay, I like to see that. That doesn't mean everything's perfect. It just means, we had some really nice data on kids. So they will be coming back after our winter diagnosis as part of the grant. So they'll come back and do more work, which will be nice. It'll give teachers, several months to look at the data, play with it, work with it, and then they'll have more questions as they go. So I thought it was good.
And we'll be able to present that in
Absolutely.
more of a data package
Right.
with some other data points that will give you a good sense of, I think, of how our students are doing and what we need to really focus on in terms of our teaching and resources, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think, being able to triangulate the data, that's kind of our next move with our teams. They're looking at all that data, but we're also working with Lisa Red. She's helping us create ways to get the data all in one spot. So it's easy for teachers, easy for us to look at. So it's definitely been a collaborative experience and I will have more to share.
Okay, any questions, Dr. Scollins? You can just ask them.
So I had one conference already and I was talking to my kids about homework. And so both mentioned iReady My Path for math.
4, 3 through 5.
Okay,
Yes,
I was
we're
wondering,
doing a pilot. That was part of the
if
grant.
that was up through 8th grade or
No,
what that resource
No,
is. So
it's
that's 3 through
only,
5.
yeah, it goes up till.
Right.
Right, but we
we
got
are
a
using it.
grant, yeah, so we got a grant to pilot it this year, so we had to wait for the diagnostic to
Yep.
happen, and then they're rolling it
Yep.
out, so we want to see the first of all, I want to see how it works. We've been
Yep.
using Dreambox at the elementary level, which is
Yep.
still an adaptive math program that kids can practice on, and it works on their skills where they are, but we want to see how the iReady component would be, the personalized learning, in comparison to what we have with Dreambox. And, we're wondering how will that impact their ability to take the iReady diagnostic,
Totally.
right? So, like,
So
even
is
from a
that
tool
targeting
perspective.
standards on which they were weaker when taking the diagnostic? Is that what's being targeted when they're doing
So
the My
that's,
Path?
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
kind of that piece, right? So it uses that, and then in conjunction, there is a bit of I think it's directly connected. You can use them separately. You don't have to use the diagnostic and the personalized learning
It makes
together.
sense to inform.
But we're gonna try it and see how it works, and if it's something that we think is really valuable, we'll look at that for math, and we'll also look at it for reading also. We've left the
Yeah.
We've been using that for a few years, and it's fine, it's great, it's an adaptive program. But we're trying to look at our assessments, look at our programming, make sure that we're being effective and efficient too, right? So if we can combine platforms so that we're not having multiple platforms, but
Yeah.
using one, might be it.
Yeah, and
But
also
we
for
don't know.
kids to just learn like the style of iReady when they have more experience with that exact program and product. It's gonna be easier to take the diagnostic, so I'll be curious to see those results.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm really curious about
Yeah.
it.
I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, St. John's. Anything else?
Yeah, as far as the MCAS, I did get ours at the house, except for one daughter didn't get it, so she's been on the website trying to find it.
She didn't get your
she-
report?
She didn't get the report, and having a twin sister, they're like, she's going crazy trying
So
to.
she should just call the office.
Oh,
because
yeah.
Absolutely,
She can get a copy of the report.
absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
she
Oh,
tried
absolutely.
online and sent
Yeah,
it to me.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
else is out there that didn't receive one for
Yeah.
some
Please call
reason,
Yeah.
the school
call-
Well, it
office.
was 2 out of 3 that we got, so,
well, we want 3 out of 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it's about.
Right.
So, yeah, so she can just go to the office.
We'll get that to you,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's great. It was nice to see that, the scoring and, yeah, I did see some like 6th to 8th grade deficiencies, like in my own children's grade. So, and you definitely see that 2 years of being locked down.
Absolutely, and I'll share a lot of that. I have like the overall state data, and I'll share some of those trends and patterns and show where we are. and,
Yeah,
you
you've
know.
still got a lot of making up to do.
Yeah, it's gonna take us a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I do think that we should, when we do go for budget finances, as we are gonna be looking for math specialists, again, I'm gonna ring that doorbell. But I think that's gonna be a good way to show that we do need to make that up, because, you know, when it does come time to get the funding for it, I
Yeah.
really want us to be able to explain that
Yeah.
this is just numbers, like, we're not
Well,
making this stuff up, like, we need these resources.
And you'll see, you know, and MCAS is one data point, but
Yeah,
it's,
no, I
but
get
it's
it,
a
I
data.
get it. It's
And,
data.
and,
It's what most people understand, really, to be honest. with
well,
you.
absolutely, and it's also something that's standard across all the districts, so it will be, the Dr. Collins will really be able to tell you, where the state is struggling and how we are doing in relation to that, but there's no secret that, you know, where the state is struggling, we may not be struggling as much
Right,
as some, but it's impacting us as well.
yeah,
And we'll see that when you
You will share.
present the comprehensive information at the next meeting.
yes.
Super brief.
Yes.
Piggyback, can that note about, hey, if you didn't get MCAS, contact your school, can that be added to your newsletter or
Oh, sure,
something? I
sure,
think just,
Absolutely.
it's always nice to encourage people to contact the school if they have a question, so
Yeah.
they're not
Right,
just sitting at
good
home
idea.
wondering.
Yep.
I think just push it out there, because principal newsletters are less frequent, but yours is weekly, so
Yeah.
just to have it in there,
Completely,
that'd be awesome.
completely. We'll actually put that.
Yeah, I have it in
forward.
my
Yeah.
section, but you know.
Yeah, just
We'll-
maybe towards the
we
top,
talked
just
about-
to scroll through.
There
We're
are
gonna
some
put
other
that,
things.
we'll put that prominently,
Yeah,
yeah.
great, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Dr. Scoggins? Seeing none, Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Scoggins, thank you very much for those reports. Move on to the Budget Resources and Governance section of the agenda and turn the meeting to our Director of Finance and Operations, Susan Owen, to provide us with the budget reports.
Can you give me sharing?
I sure can, and I can also share if you need me to. So here you go. There you are.
Yeah, so we're already into October. We're gonna give you an update for the September financial report, which is a bit different than our last one. As of September 30th, the school department has expended about 3.5 million out of our $22 million budget. It's about 24.8% through expended, which we're 25% through the year, so we're pretty much right on target. Significant increase from the August reporting, which didn't include most of the payroll. So now that all staff is back in school, the payroll, the bulk of the payroll has now begun and started to expend the budget. We've encumbered all the supplies and materials on purchase orders in the amount of 1.9 million. That number will change throughout the year. There's a remaining balance of 16 million, again, which will be expended throughout from now and next June. And supplies and materials that are needed will be added on a purchase order. And sorry, lost my train of thought. Any other school department needs that can't be anticipated have not been entered onto a purchase order. We'll also expend that $16 million available budget. The good news is, to date, spent tuition for budget at 1.1 million. They are currently encumbered on purchase orders, and to date, there are no changes. We are on target, so there's no negative, no surprises right now. Change throughout the year. You know, one student come into district, go out of district, so we know that fluctuates from week to week, month to month. But as of right now, we are on target with the special education tuitions. I give you just a little snippet of each school and what their budgets were. I'm not gonna go through every single number, you know, it shows you the budgeted amount, what we've expended to date, what's been encumbered, what the balances are, and the percentage used. I also give you the FTEs, which is the full-time equivalency. So that's how many positions or staff that we have in each building. Pretty comparative between most of the schools, other than obviously the high school. High school also is where all our custodians are categorized because it's one building. So, you know, some of that increase there is just custodial.
Yes.
Circuit breaker, no change to circuit breaker. Funding received in FY '22 was $701,856. We carried that amount in its entirety over into this year, which will be used to help offset some of our special tuition costs based on a 75% reimbursement rate, which has been pretty steady the last 4 or 5 years at least. Hopefully that number doesn't change. Circuit breaker, again, if no one, you know, if you don't Note circuit breaker is the state program providing school districts with reimbursement for some of the costs incurred for providing free and appropriate education to students with special needs. So we do get a reimbursement, it's 75% on some of those tuitions. Our capital outlay for the year, you can see it was very limited this year, it was $484,500. Most, if not all, our projects have been complete. The school bus lease, middle school, high school paging zones. The furniture replacement in Deer Hill is in the process right now. We've paid the lease for replacing our Chromebooks. We've retired some more classrooms at Deer Hill. The field lights are complete, which I think they're on right now. Locker mechanisms at the middle school have been completed. The install of the AC heater split for the middle school health clinic and the hallway to the bathroom access. So those projects are all, we took out of the gate quickly, got them all done. Moving on into our, we're already looking at what our needs are for next year. Our grants, we have less this year than we did last year. We lost 2 grants, which were special education grants. They were just one-time grants. So you can see here, we're still utilizing our SF3 grant. It was a 2-year grant. We have the school improvement grant. We have the school SPED IDEA grant. It shows you what the grant amounts were. So we've had a total grant coming into the state for about 1.1 million. We've expended about 363,000. We've encumbered some money and we have about $761,000 left in there. And those grants, the combination of those grants help fund 12.3 staff members. Revolving accounts. So obviously I'm not going to go through every one of them. Key ones to look at are usually our kindergarten, our transportation. The one that comes to mind here is our school use of facilities. You can see our deficit is growing. We're now at minus $12,598. We have adjusted our fees to help offset those costs. We're still working through some of our groups just because of the cost and participation. They've already signed up. So we're still working through a couple of the groups, but hopefully, that will resolve itself over the course of the year. And then the school lunch program, as always, again, I'm on a listserv that all schools are, looking at the same thing. Their school lunch programs are carrying a very high balance just because everything's free right now. Once that goes away, you will see, that school lunch number definitely decrease. And our revolving accounts, again, help cover the salaries for about 25.5 personnel.
Question about the revolving fund. Sorry to interrupt. This is just on the school use, the number, the deficit number. Is that just a matter of time? Does that play itself out over the year generally? Or is there always a deficit?
No, there's not usually a deficit, but what's been happening is the rates that we were charging, which is
Yeah,
why we.
Right, we
wanted to
address that, which
increase.
is great. Yeah,
We would charge your rate for custodial, for example, $35.
Yep.
For years, that's been the rate. But for years, our contractually, our custodians get an increase every year. So, and it's time and a half for them. So our time and a half average rate right now is about $47
okay,
per custodian, but we were charging 35.
I see.
So that was one of the reasons we voted to
That's
increase.
good.
So we can recap that money, at least cover the cost. Because right now, we're obviously not covering the cost.
Good.
And so when you mentioned school lunch budget will decrease once the meals are no longer subsidized. Do you have, or could you at some point, I doubt you know this off the top of your head, but could you provide some sort of estimate as to how much it'll decrease when we stop getting like what, I'm curious, what will we left with, like in a normal year where it's no longer free? Because I want to basically, what I'm driving at is I'm trying to identify what resources we'll have to make improvements to the lunch program.
Absolutely. No, I can go back.
Because I feel like this is fictitiously high.
It is. That's why I said the listserv, the talk is among financial directors are, wow, we've got this big bucket of money, only because everything is free.
Right.
Then, it will start to balance out over the next few years when we start charging for lunch and extending it down. Typically, there's about, I want to say about 100,000, 120,000 remaining each year.
Okay,
Obviously, not the last few years.
Okay.
It's grown.
right. It's good to know. Okay.
Anything else on the revolvers?
Yes, Lydia, did you have anything?
Oh.
Why don't you go? I feel like we've been,
Not at this moment.
okay.
Thanks.
Just wanted to give you, I like to hear from you sometimes, because it always goes my way. and
Thanks.
You're up.
You're around.
You're up.
It's good, You know? I'm just saying, like, Craig makes a great point about, you know, what exactly can we do for each one of these accounts? So if you could take some time and maybe see, because, you know, we got 1.2 million here, we might as well use it or lose it, right? I mean, if we're struggling for a math specialist, or we're looking for this or that, like, I just think we should look into these accounts and say, look, let's use some of these resources. I mean, you have one here such as, the after-school programs, you know, we're talking about building the gym, and hopefully we can get some update to the school committee on that. I'll reach out to Mr. Tanya to see where we're at on that.
Yeah, that, I mean, what we're waiting on is just the proper outfit of the area.
Yeah, we're waiting for the
Center,
price. You got it from Grakowski's company? or-
Gronkowski is going to have a quote book by Friday.
Okay,
That's what he
good.
said.
All right.
So that's-
That's.
That's what he says.
I mean, we didn't want to show a
Yeah,
fictitious.
no, I get it, but it's moving in the right direction, and a lot of people are really excited about it, so I don't wanna not have some answers for them, so like, if we have $38,000 in the after-school program, can we look for some kind of like programs to, like, what I foresee somebody as being, somebody in the gym to offer the gym exercises from 3 to 6, and then somebody in here for education, so we could have relatively, I'd like to see some, like, 4 staff, man and female teachers, 3 hours a day here to educate, and 3 hours a day to motivate in the fitness center. So these are things that I just think that if we can buckle down, if we have the money, we should be using it. And really, like, how long has this money been stale? How long, what's going on? It's $1.2 million that's here. So I think that we need to really look at ways we can incorporate that into some of our learning. And right now, like, you know, I know the vending machine's been a success. Matter of fact, my son just gave me his code. If I'm hungry, I can go get it. He's like, Dad.
Remember, you get a free
I
first.
tried.
Yeah, no,
It's
it's,
like-
So, Mr. Cuny, can I make a suggestion about
Yeah,
this?
sure.
The idea, to make it a little bit more of a surmountable task, I think, it's more appropriate, let's look at it in a little bit more depth in subcommittee.
Yeah.
But also maybe identify some priority areas for
Okay.
Ms. Owen, so that, because I feel like it's a little bit daunting with all these accounts to look at. Also, you gotta remember, this money, you know, obviously is used to operate the existing programs. So I think maybe we can sit down in subcommittee, identify some areas of primary interest, and then Ms. Owen can maybe identify, you know, areas where there is maybe a fairly apparent surplus, you know,
Right.
but let's try and target those in subcommittee.
Okay.
Because I think right now, asking Ms. Owen to look at all the accounts.
no, I'm
I
not
think
asking.
food
you now, I'm
service
just
is what
saying,
we
would it
can-
be
we can look
prudent
at.
to do that?
Food service is one, you know, and
Yeah.
then maybe there's another, maybe the.
Yeah,
school
that's
program,
what
that's a good one, I don't know, but I think let's drill down in that, you know, drill down into that a little bit more in subcommittee.
Okay, so we can
Because I
put that
don't
on the
want to
agenda
overwhelm Ms.
for
Owen.
the next one.
I
It's on
think
the
that's a
agenda.
great idea. If it's the food service,
Right. And that's, with the revolving accounts, yes, it's 1 point something million at the bottom, but those numbers are, you know, a snapshot of now.
Right,
It's still funding some of
That's
those
right. Oh, yeah.
programs through
Oh,
the year. And for example, like the kid, you know, if you look at preschool, the
Yeah.
preschool balance can only be reinvested into the preschool.
that's right.
right,
You know, it can't fund the math.
right, okay,
Well, it's a preschool match.
yeah, okay, well. then-
Right, but that is what he's talking about, so
Yeah.
okay, but what part of that is kind of surplus funds we can expect to have? And can we use those surplus funds act proactively to improve the program that they need to be allocated to? So that's why I'm saying, I think it's a more in-depth conversation than we can have right now.
It's a huge subcommittee.
Let's do
Okay,
that,
so we can-
finance subcommittee, and then obviously the food one the
Yep.
nutrition subcommittee can focus on the school lunch program. So thank you for that, Mr. Kearney, I think it's a good point.
Can I ask a basic question?
Of course.
The revolving funds, do they roll over year to year? Or
Yes.
they did? Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Please continue, Ms. Owen.
Sure. So again, a snapshot that you'll see at each meeting of a breakdown
of staffing, headcount, and FTE. So we have a total of 274 bodies, as you will, in the district, which amount to 222.34 FTEs. Obviously, some of those, some people are part-time, so they're 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. There's a small breakdown here of what's regular education, just in salaries, what's in mandated special education salaries, and then undistributed, which are obviously salaries that, aren't designated to either one or the other. So our salaries total about $18,852,000.
And our total annual budget is approximately
20.
21, 22.
Yes. And again, this is just a scale, as you can see, the regular education is up in the 12s, and then the mandated and the undistributed. The electric and the gas, the summaries, nothing out of the ordinary, which is month by month. So, costs between last year and this year. Again, we used more kilowatts last year than we did this year, but the cost is higher, which is just the norm. Gas, very similar to gas. Obviously, you can see the gas numbers are very low right now because we just turned on the heat this week.
Yep.
So
Yes, the heat is on.
the heat is on. And as we spoke about the grants, so this kind of gives you the list of the grants and how many staff members they support. Same thing with the revolving and how many staff members by group.
One note there, the Title I grant, which has been declining for us, used to really help with a salary, and at one point, more than a salary.
Right, and we're down to a 0.4.
So we're really, but that's important for us to understand because we need that person.
Right.
So that funding needs to come from a different source.
So each year, we're absorbing into the budget a little bit more of that.
And that's just the state allowed funding for us for Title I, which is dwindling.
Yeah, it's real.
So again, at this point, really no concerns, obviously watching utility costs and tuition expenses.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Owen.
Question.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Owen? We'll go in alphabetical order. Mr. Carr?
No.
Mr. Kearney?
I would just say, like, when we do have our state senator and state representative in this, we usually have them in. Maybe that's one thing we can bring up is how do we get more funding through grants? Because that is a negative on this. And then hopefully, it might be a situation where there is a question one right now that would give back $2 billion to cities and towns. If
Yeah.
that does pass, we're going to be looking for that money.
And Representative Nishino, at my request and others about school safety has kept us in the loop on safety legislation that's upcoming. And actually her office just sent an email to me regarding some other grant opportunities, which literally got right before I came in here.
Great.
I sent it over to Sue and to Dr. Scollins and Mr. Sawanka, so we can sink our teeth into it.
Great.
But I think our elected representatives are doing a fine job keeping us in the loop.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mr. St. John?
No questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. St. John. No questions. Thank you very much for your update, Ms. Owen.
Budget priorities.
Priorities.
Next on the agenda, which does involve a vote, I believe, is budget priorities that we set down as a team, and we tweaked some of them. Some of them, are familiar from last year. The first compass points, teaching and learning, our budget priorities include elementary literacy. We added in the mathematics 6 to 12, science 6 to 8, and the arts pre-K through 12. Last year, I think it was just elementary literacy and some math. Social emotional, I don't believe changed at all. That's our compass point 2. So social emotional learning continues as a pillar of our student-centered approach.
Yep.
Compass 3 is resources. So we continue to prioritize ensuring that our buildings are safe, secure, and well maintained. Lots of meetings going on about that. And priorities include, capital and facility improvements, transportation, custodial. Again, a topic that is conversation daily.
MSBA, of course.
What we did add to that one, thank you.
Yep.
Is the Mass School, we submitted our statement of interest to the Mass School Building Authority. So we're waiting patiently. They came out, did a walkthrough with us, and we're just waiting, when they're gonna be accepted into the program or not.
Sure.
So obviously that's one of our compass points. And the communication engagement, so budget priorities for FY '24. We'll incorporate programming to engage families and community, work to create systems that will prioritize community and family collaboration. Our budget priorities will also support student voice and student agency. So those are the budget priorities that we've put together for this year as a team. Just need school committee to make suggestions or take a vote.
Okay, first, are there any questions regarding budget priorities for someone? Mr. Carr?
No questions.
Mr. Kearney?
I think this is well thought of.
It's very tied into the strategic plan. So it was kind of guided for us in some ways.
Mrs. St. Ange?
Very well aligned. It's just an extra period at the end of the first sentence in social emotional wellness block.
The teacher.
Where is it?
It's on the first sentence.
First sentence of the social emotional wellness.
Oh, social emotional.
Oh, there it is.
Approach
Yes,
period.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
The
Dot, dot,
content,
dot.
the content, yeah.
We wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, Who knows what's coming? I think the content is great.
Thank you.
I have no questions. Is there a motion to approve budget priorities as presented by Ms. Owen here tonight?
So,
Motion made by Mr. Carr and seconded by
Second.
Ms. St. Ange. All in favor? Aye.
aye.
All opposed? Motion passes by a vote of 4-0. Ms. Owen?
Great.
Budget calendar?
Budget calendar. Again, very similar to past years, there's no surprises. The only changes truly are just the dates to be more in line with school committee dates on here. So you can see, we've already met with our principals to find out what their maintenance needs are. We had leadership meeting on September 21st, which is our first meeting to discuss our budget needs. We're right now bringing in our capital requests. And then you'll see right down the list, budget information has already been sent out to the principals and district leadership to prepare their budgets for FY '24. Even though we've just starting into '23, we're already sending them into '24. So we've added a few things here. I don't know, Pat, if you were gonna add something.
No, I was just going to say we wanted to just make sure everyone knows this is a very much a collaborative, systematic approach to budgeting. Where as a leadership team, we're talking several times a year about positions we need, and we're bringing forth data that determines that. Some of it academic data points, others more just what they're seeing and hearing, and the teachers are telling them, and we'll be able to. So we're assessing that a few times a year, and then bringing in the school committee into that discussion to talk about community priorities. So this really equates to a very systematic, collaborative approach that should result in the community and the school leaders being really in lockstep with our needs. Then it's a matter of advocating.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Anything more, Ms. Owen?
No.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Owen? Mr. Carr?
No.
Mr. Kearney?
Yeah, I would only ask this year to really ask them what they need and what they want. I mean, I feel like it's like, they do a good job of like, okay, we don't really need this, I think we should get
You're
a.
talking about the leadership?
Yeah, I just
Yep.
think it's the full ask this year. I mean, like,
Yep.
seriously, like, right down to the coaches of what they need to keep, we got, Steve Rotunda needs buildings that you can put all the stuff in, those big garages that look good at Situate. They have those, he talked about buying 3 of those pods, like, to store stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I just like to see like all out ass, because, this is important stuff, and we get, we're gonna have to start to get used to if our schools aren't really where we're at, I think it's our job to go to the taxpayers and say, look, I feel like we go to one board and that's it, and that board always says no to everything. I just don't think it should be like it should go to the taxpayers. And I really think that, if we don't show what we really need,
Yep.
and we're programmed to show what we can get away with, I just don't think that's a good way of getting our students what they really need. So like this year, I'd really like to encourage you guys to really ask the teachers and ask the sports teams and I would reiterate with the music programs and how we can really, might not have the buildings, but we should have the resources if we're not going to supply the building.
Yeah, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that the community knows
Yeah,
what we feel we need to maximize our students.
well, you guys already did do a presentation. I know you spent some time with it, Craig, along with Lance, to come up with like what we really need. And I think we need to show that to the community and say, Dr. Sullivan, I mean, honestly, like your job, you need help. You need, like, you are hiring everybody and it's taken away from your leadership roles on these minimal tasks that really you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, business 101 is, you're not afraid to do it, and I get that. and
I
appreciate
I know
that.
exactly what you're saying.
It
Yeah.
shows a lot of you're able to do it and just get it done. I get that. I just think that, for a long time, this school has been underfunded, and it's because we don't ask. And we don't do a good job of asking the right people. We just seem to ask one committee that says no. And if we have to go to the taxpayers and let them make the decision, then that's what we gotta do. Because we gotta get used to it if we're gonna build a $150 million school.
Well, we appreciate the support and align with you on it.
We need it.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mr. St. Ange?
My only question is about the walkthrough. So,
Capital walkthrough.
yeah, will we all get an email? Obviously, it's on the 15th, but will we all get an email just to?
Oh, yeah.
coordinate? I just can't remember what happens.
Yep.
Yes,
The
the
year and
email.
walkthroughs.
Yeah, we did that last year. You
Yes.
sure? We got some stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
That AC's working and that,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it just, we
Yeah.
just haven't understand right now.
Okay, I get that on my calendar. I think that's been really effective throughout the years. I mean,
It's great.
We implemented that, what, 5 years ago, 4 years
We did,
ago?
yeah. my
It just
first year.
shows like,
Yep. It's my first year, yeah, that was a big deal.
and I think we could walk through it now and be happy that it's.
People need to see it. You need to see, they need to understand what
Yeah.
what we're saying. Can't just be a picture on a screen.
Right,
And they want, and, with respect to the committees, they want that too. They want to be able to see what we're talking about.
Right.
And I appreciate that, really do, that they've come to look at these issues when we've raised them.
Okay, moving on to, I just note on November 15th, we gotta fix that, because this document's published, correct?
It hasn't been published yet.
But it's gonna be
It will be.
when we approve.
That's what we're getting.
So capital walkthrough, small w, and we're gonna need to remove the second through.
Capital walk through?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
So it's just, yeah, it should just be capital walkthrough with town and school leaders, and walkthrough doesn't need to count capitalized. Any other questions regarding the budget calendar? Concerns or issues? Any motion to approve the budget calendar subject to the revision I just suggested? Motion's been made by Mr. Carter, second.
second.
All in favor of approving the budget calendar as presented by Ms. Owen here tonight, subject to the revisions I suggested? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So Owen, that passes. I voted 4-0. So we can finalize that, and publish it.
So that before we get to transportation, Lance had asked me to talk a little bit about some of our facility goals moving forward in general terms. But this is something that we had discussed back over the summer when we talked about all of our needs in terms of teaching and learning, in terms of student services, and then in terms of our facilities goals. And just in a nutshell, there's a lot of things that, as Mr. Kearney has mentioned, that we need to improve. Certainly, we have a whole list of safety upgrades that were made apparent in AI3's report, working with the Barzano and Associates, that we will be bringing forward at different points in different ways. Some of them will be through capital. And then there are other facilities improvements that we're working on, but will, and really basically tie into pretty much everything that we're doing. Some of them are improving our learning spaces as they stand. And a good example of that is what we did in this room. This is a great example of a CEF-funded approach to improve a room that had the bones of being a great space, but at the time was cluttered, didn't have a real look at a dynamic, a look of a dynamic learning space. This is exactly what we're moving to do with our Deer Hill library, which we will make into a learning commons upcoming. Obviously, Sue's going to talk a bit. You saw from the flash of the screen, bus parking and what we're hoping to do with bus parking, but that's a major facilities need of ours, and a facility that actually the bus drivers can use on that, and then perhaps, incorporating some alternative energy solutions regarding that as well. I can absolutely see that moving forward. Our arts department, as we grow it and as we grow the opportunities for students to participate in arts at our elementary level, I would love to see something that highlights that. We don't really have a notable auditorium or any spaces that really spell a robust music program. I'd like to be able to offer that at that level, and I think that would be a community effort moving forward. And keep in mind that the facilities team did a tremendous job, the new facilities committee, working with AI3 to get a report on all of our buildings. And all of our buildings, none of them were absolutely perfect. They're all going to need upgrades. Even Osgood, which was noted as sort of our best from a physical stance, had some major work that needed to be done moving forward. So all of that will be realized as we move forward. And we'll be asking through capital and various ways to get those things done. And then, of course, our most perhaps pressing need right now is at this building in the middle of the high school. That's going to take up a major portion of our goals. And having been in a community that builds a flagship school before I came to Cohasset, once we built that school, it had a trickle-down effect to every single building and every single teaching and learning component in that district. It immediately was a boost of energy. And I look forward to trying to sponsor that, working with my team to get that going in Cohasset. So those are just some generalities that I told Lance I'd present, so I will stay true to my word. So
Thank you for that, Dr. Sullivan, and thank you for the budget updates, Ms. Owen. Can we move on to the transportation section now? The Alternative Energy Committee update is listed on and the electric bus update is listed on the agenda. I'm not certain, though, that it ended up ultimately being something that we were going to have a full presentation on tonight. I think that at first, Ms. Bodell was planning on doing that, but we decided that because we knew we wouldn't have a full committee present, and there might be some budget concerns, we'd want to have a full vote or something like that. Ms. St. Ange seems to have some
I
information.
just know that in the emails that we were on, Lance said he wasn't comfortable having it on today, wants it on the next agenda, and said Pat, Sue, and Lydia can give an initial update at next Wednesday's meeting, which is, I believe, why he left it as a line
That's right.
item,
That's right.
but not with Swedell as a presenter
Correct.
this week.
So that answers the question.
And we look forward to that. It's just there's some work we need to do in order to have full, and we're actually quite a bit through that, but it was a tough one because we obviously, it's an important agenda item. We wanted to put it on an agenda, but we wanted to put it on at the appropriate time when we were ready to be able to dig deep and give you some of the answers that I know you're going to ask about in reflection. And we're there, but it makes sense to have it at the next meeting. And I don't know if you wanted to update a little bit on the Alternative Energy Committee meeting at this point, or if you wanted to wait for that.
I think from the AC committee meeting perspective, there's a lot of enthusiasm surrounding this project. They're hoping to move it forward. There are a bunch of different town committees that need to be, presented to.
Yes.
But obviously, being a school project, this is a very pivotal decision. So Tanya's prepared a presentation that I think is very pedestrian friendly or layperson friendly. that we'll all receive in our next packet so that we can preview it before she presents, which
Great.
is also really helpful, just so that we can prepare our questions.
Yep.
And when we had a call about this a couple weeks ago, I think the opportunity sounds super exciting. It's just the financial stuff
right.
that is the question. Is that,
It is.
I mean, obviously, money is a big issue.
It is fine.
And you know, one of the things, you know, obviously there's some areas that as we consider an electric school bus, you know, how this will be positioned in our fleet, some of the lease terms,
Parking.
design, parking.
Well, we're gonna have the
We're gonna have the
actual presentation
presentation.
next meeting. I
Correct.
think we need to get it depth. What I would like to do is just make it clear to the community on this recording that the point is that we are considering a electric
Yes.
bus pilot
Absolutely.
program here in Cohasset
Yeah,
to see how that works. And there are some intricacies and budget questions that we'll have to address in more detail at
That's
the
it.
next meeting.
that's exactly right. And that's why it was on the agenda.
Okay, perfect. So knowing that now, I know that Ms. Owen, you had perhaps some information relative to the bus parking update. I think I saw
Yes.
a
Um,
aid that was,
Just very, very quickly. So we've had an engineer go out, and I know that this is very small. Kind of hard to,
Nope, I mean, it's fine. It was good. It was good. We could
Was
say
it
so
that.
now,
Yeah.
Ms. Owen, that is that we're looking at the driveway leading from Osgood towards Deer Hill. Those buses are facing Sawyer Street, correct? And that's in the front of Deer Hill School.
yes, so Sawyer Street's out here.
Correct.
This is the tree line. This is where you would see our buses. Also, with the 3 smaller buses, there's 10 additional parking spaces here. And then you can see, you know, the existing parking and the school is over here.
That's Deer Hill School there.
So that's Deer Hill.
Yep.
I mean, they've gone out there and done this diagram right now. The next step is they're going to talk to conservation to make sure. 'Cause some of this is wet way back here. They don't believe it's gonna be a problem, but they want to just clear it with conservation first before we even move forward. So that's just a quick update.
And early stages right now.
Very early.
Can we make sure that that diagram is presented to, or provided to rather, Michelle Leary at the town? I just want her to have that.
She must
She
have
probably
it.
has it, right?
I don't know that
Well,
she
let's
does.
confirm. Let's
I
confirm.
don't know
I'll
that
make
she
sure.
does.
Is
I'm
this, I
pretty sure
mean,
she does, but I will definitely.
I know this is some work with Glenn Pratt too.
Glenn Pratt, right.
Yes, I just want to make sure that
She's been an
Michelle has
active
it.
part of this.
Right,
Sure.
and Ms. Leary is the assistant town manager for those of you that might be
Town
watching and don't know.
Yes.
Any questions for Ms. Owen relative to that preliminary introduction of that concept, Mr. Carr?
Can I just confirm, so Alternative Energy will be invited to be here on November 2nd?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
for the emails that were exchanged
To-
already. Nope, in the past, that she was on.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Mr. Carey?
I just want to say, good job. This is great. This is something that we had a problem with and we've been trying to figure out
Yeah.
a solution and.
I'll feel good when it's.
Yeah, no, it's just-
Right.
it's
But I-
exciting.
It's-
We're working
Something-
towards it.
It's very slow.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and then having 10 extra spots as well, because we definitely need it up there, because it does get
Thanks.
packed in.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan. Ms. St. Ange?
No.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll move right on to the food service update. Right now, I don't think there's a substantive update. We're still trying to schedule our next subcommittee meeting. I guess Mr. Dial puts this on here, though. I always confuse these because they sort of overlap with topics. of subcommittee.
Well-
So I think that he just wants general
This is more of an operational food
updates
service.
from a food service perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, remember it's really the it's a nutrition subcommittee, which is really in most typical senses an outgrowth of the wellness committee. But we have it as a subcommittee. It doesn't usually have a place on a school committee's subcommittee list, but it does for us. So this is an operational sort of what do we call it, like standing agenda point.
Right.
Yes.
Keeps
That
it in-
allows us-
keeps it-
Update.
keeps us in-
But
Yes.
without bullets, maybe you don't have to address.
Right, I think that it doesn't seem like there was a
Yes.
substantive update. Okay, so we'll move on to reports from School Facilities Committee, and that's in a holding pattern. That was actually reported on earlier by Dr. Sullivan and Ms. Owen, that we're just awaiting word from the Master School Building Authority relative to our SOI. So that does it relative to budget resource and governance. We'll move on to the community relations communication section of the subcommittee. right into our updates from various committees, subcommittees and liaison positions. Mr. Carr, do you have any updates relative to any subcommittees you're on or any liaison positions?
I think Susan talked about the opportunity to renovate the room as it relates to the weight area in the school. So we discussed that at our last meeting, but that's ongoing. We're in good shape.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Mr. Kearney, any updates?
Yeah, that was a great update. No, but just a comment, it is school bus safety week. That's what I saw today.
You know that.
Oh,
There's so many weeks now.
I know,
I
it's
don't
nice
keep up with
being
it.
sibling day.
Kearney,
That
Mrs.
is great.
Vaughn, do you have any updates?
Just a brief liaison update. We just had our first Deer Hill School Council meeting last week. It's great to see new members. It's also really nice to be back on a regular schedule, I'm sure for all of the school councils, not in a rush to get a school improvement plan or 2 in 1 year. And just dive a little deeper into goals.
You
It's
got it.
really,
You got it.
really nice to be able to get back to a more regular
Completely.
rhythm and have the
Completely.
schools just think more deeply about how they're developing their own culture and action plans.
It's great.
Okay, thank you, Ms. St. Ange. I do not have any substantive updates relative to any subcommittees that I sit on or liaison positions. So with that, we'll move into the school committee governance section. There are no topics that are not reasonably anticipated by the chair, or in this case, vice chair, that I am aware of. So we'll move to the approval of minutes. Mr. Carr, I don't think there are any minutes to approve at this meeting, correct?
so no, I am, there are 7 currently done. Today I sent to Lance and
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan earlier. It is me, I'm catching up. I think up to 6 of the 7, so the last one will be done by the end of the week.
Great.
Should be able to vote on the next
Should
week. I do want to recognize we have a wonderful person named Kathy Bach who helps us virtually to keep these things organized. She's been terrific to work with. I did not realize I also have a school email address, which is different than my town email address. So if you're trying to reach me at my school email address, I realized that yesterday. I have a school email address, so I'll catch up on that thing. But I think most everybody is getting me on my town
Yes.
email address. But the school email address is listed on the website. So we're gonna talk to them.
Well, thank you very much for your hard work, Mr. Carr, and thanks for letting us know about that email situation. I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Future agenda items. Does anyone have any perhaps that update on that RAD training after you discuss things with Situate and our Cohasset Police Department? Maybe we have an update
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
But I'll leave that to the chairperson. It's not my job to develop a committee, but
I'll follow up with an email.
sounds good. Are there any other proposed future agenda items for Mr. Dial to consider along with Dr. Sullivan and develop the agenda?
I'm actually curious about having, once we complete the fall season of volleyball, having a little bit of a, I don't know, like a briefing of how it went,
Yeah.
what kind of, maybe some player perspective and coach perspective, or, it's a new sport. We don't get a lot of new sports, kind of how it went, what they feel like, how we could grow it, how it could change, growing
You
pains.
could recognize them too.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
also recognize
Might be
Mrs.
nice.
Soderberg for putting.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh,
together.
yeah.
Great
Yeah, I
work.
would think that would be great to bring.
And it might, I agree, and it might be nice, either as a standalone
Yeah.
or in conjunction of an update about the fall sports
Yeah.
teams, and that as a, obviously one of the highlights.
And there's just a lot of energy behind that program. I know that Mr. Rotundi was having a meeting tonight about it, but that's a totally different purpose for that. And I just think so nice to get feedback after season 1, right?
It is, and it's, there's always a process of starting a new sports team. And, the reason it is often a multi-year process is because you want to give a program a chance to develop. And sometimes programs, they burn, in anything, they, particularly in a small district, they burn high in the beginning and then they don't sustain, or the opposite.
Mhm.
They start slow, and then by your second or third year, you're really cooking with gas and they're sustaining. So this is an example of a program that hit it pretty well right out of the blocks, and is working in the process. So yeah, I know they're talking about that, and I think it would be great to update.
Just think a
on
season
their
1 recap, some
times.
feedback.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Things that went well, things that could improve.
Okay,
Sure,
well, let's, so
Great.
maybe you can make a note of that, Dr. Sullivan, discuss it with the chairperson when you guys are developing.
Yeah,
agendas.
yeah, we can decide if it's a spotlight or how we're gonna do it. Yeah.
Anything else? Any other proposed future agenda items? Mine would be I want to, look at the METCO program. I want to have a presentation. It would be nice to have a presentation in both semesters, for lack of a better phrase, so we can see how things have, what their experience has been like. It's a really, for a young person, I think the demands on the METCO students are high, and it's a lot, and I really want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support them. I'm not stating that we're not. I just want to make sure that we are. So it'd be nice to hear from them, in the first part of the year, maybe the latter part of the first part of the year. And hey, how are things going? What happened this semester or this, first, second term? Expectations met, were they not met? What challenges are you encountering? And then if we can do another one towards the end of the year, like we did last year, not only focusing on overall experience, but also sort of getting back to those points that might have been raised earlier on, so we can see if we've maybe implemented some changes that could help their experience. That's a suggestion that I'd ask Dr. Sullivan you to consider in conjunction with the chairperson.
Yeah, and actually, I'm looking at our signups for METCO, and we actually don't have one yet.
Okay.
I would also,
Is it over
I'm
there?
curious, this is something we discussed in the past,
So-
of going into the new Metco building and holding our meeting there. We talked about that after the opening.
Nubian Square, that'd be
Nubian
wonderful,
Square, I
but
just
that's
think-
just gonna have
I
to
just think it would be a
cover
really
the-
important gesture to go
Love it.
to the Metco headquarters, and then invite families to come there and say, here we are in the evening.
Are you suggesting that we host an actual school committee meeting there?
Yeah, we talked about that in the past, and we talked about our rotation,
They
which
have a
has
nice facility.
happened, which I'm
rotation.
totally fine. But I remember when we originally discussed that, we said, let's have a meeting at the Metco
Okay.
headquarters.
That'd be
I
lovely.
just think that would be a really important gesture.
So we have
say-
some openings. We can do.
That's great, and the only reason I think that we have.
Logistically, it's a lot.
I think that, yeah, I mean, it is, and it isn't. I think one reason we haven't started the rotation, which was Dr. Sullivan's idea, was that I don't think we have the,
Not yet, they're on order,
Police,
they're on order.
everywhere. So, and obviously we can't wheel this thing to the other side of the campus.
But might the Metco headquarters
They do.
have some sort of technology that we?
They,
could
they,
use?
they likely do, right,
Yeah.
exactly. So all I'm saying is, I don't know.
Right.
But we would need that, because I mean, we would need it. We could go back to just
I think
hosting
it's
an
important to have a
in-person
hybrid
meeting. This
model
day and age, we
still.
don't have to have it hybrid. I just personally think that it's one of the, probably one of the biggest, I don't know, positive things that came out of the pandemic, is that we started doing this, and it definitely 100% increased awareness
Yeah.
Sure.
amongst the district.
I also think like in a brand new facility, it's probably much more technologically advanced than we are in
Probably.
this facility.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is pretty good, I would say, but.
Yes,
we
this is
are-
terrific,
yeah.
but let's be honest, like, new facilities have a lot of great technology built in, streamlined.
They have they have a
Into it.
nice conference room.
Yeah.
Would totally facilitate us.
So perhaps either you can send an email to Mr. Dial and just have him look into that.
Yeah.
And it'll be on Dr. Sullivan.
I got it, I have it on my,
All right, okay,
so I love it, I
so
love it.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Mr. Carr.
Sorry to interrupt, just while we're discussing Medco, I just wanted to, I'm sure you've seen it, but Dr. Jean McGuire, thank you all for remembering her as we discuss Medco. She's, for those at home, she's one of the founders of the Medco program, the civil rights pioneer here in Boston. She was a victim of a random act of violence. I'm glad to report she's out of the hospital and doing well. So,
It's wonderful.
Yes,
I'm glad. I know the district sent her well wishes.
we did, we sent her a letter and some more wishes and looking to do more.
As a very proud Metco district, we were very happy to share our good wishes for her, and we're very happy to hear that update. Thank you, Mr. Carr, for raising that. I actually did not know she was out of the hospital.
I will be putting that in my newsletter,
It's great.
just heard that.
Okay, so any other proposed future agenda items? Seeing none, there is a reason to move into executive session tonight, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. That reason is number 3, which involves strategy in connection with collective bargaining and or litigation. So is there a motion to move into executive session for the reasons stated?
I'll move-
Motion to move into executive session is made by Mr. Carr. Is there a second?
Second.
seconded by Mrs. St. Ange. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So we'll move into executive session by virtue of that unanimous vote of the members that are present, of course. One member is not here. For those of you watching at home, we will just be reconvening to adjourn the meetings. There will not be any more substantive parts of the meeting. Well, we'll adjourn to executive session, then we have to adjourn the regular meeting.
Right.
We are not going to broadcast that part. So I'm just letting everyone know that you're not missing anything anymore. Everything would be in private anyway. Okay, so thank you for attending, those of you that did attend. And at this point, we are in executive session. So if we please stop the recording.
Do, thank you. Good night, everyone.